I was wrong. I was mistaken this time. They didn't reset my phone again. Or reset the name of it anyway. But it will happen like that. That's how it'll happen, is just out of nowhere, for no explanation at all. I'll go to my general and the name of my phone, it will just go right back to iPhone. Does anybody else have that problem? Something tells me that nobody else has that problem. I mean, nobody normally has that problem with Apple and with iPhones. Something's telling me that that's a problem that is being created like a glitch, like a glitch in the Matrix. Something's telling me it's a problem that I encounter as a result of some shady business going on with my phone. And that's why it's not typical, and that's why I can't find anybody else with that same problem. If I do, I'm betting that they are a TI, or that they also have, mysterious pictures disappear, evidence disappear off their phone, calls, like it'll show calls that I never made in my call history. It'll show calls that I did make don't show up in my call history sometimes. And other times I'll get weird messages in my voicemails. Like the one where it was from my dad, but the voicemail started out with the beep that you hear before you leave a message. And the message usually doesn't start until after that beep, so you don't ever hear the beep. But not this guy. Not this weird phone. I'll get, after it's done, changing the name of my phone, it does some weird activity with the voicemail stuff. I could go on all day. Like one time, I had a voicemail on my phone, and no shitting you, it was a recording of me, right? A short clip of me talking to the guy at Xfinity security department, their security department. I called them I was helping my dad out, and I was trying to get his Xfinity internet fixed, because, I don't know, something happened to it and it wasn't working right. So I called, and whenever I set up like security stuff on his account, when they were implementing some security stuff, I had to verify the phone number, right? So it was me saying the phone number, then the guy repeating it back to me, and then me confirming the last 4 digits of this phone number or something, or maybe social security number. I don't know. The point was that the voicemail I got on my phone was like a 3-second clip of me and this guy's in conversation where he's confirming the number, a 4-digit number. Now, here's the important thing to note. I got this voicemail on my phone. However, the conversation took place on my dad's phone. At my dad's house. I was talking on his phone to the Xfinity IT specialist, the security specialist at Xfinity. Yeah, I used his phone to talk to these people. So you tell me how I end up with a voicemail on my phone of our conversation, of a 3-second clip of our conversation. It couldn't have been my dad. Me and my dad were the only ones there. So it couldn't have been a mistake where I accidentally happened to catch, a voicemail after making a call or something. No, that couldn't have been the case. I didn't call myself from my dad's phone at all. But I do believe it was a glitch, though, that it wasn't meant to be seen like that. And another time, this is a good one. This is a while back. At the end of 2020, I think. Yeah, at the end of 2020, and right at the beginning of 2021, really, I was experiencing some very strange activity with my phone. And I had just figured out that there was somebody was behind some nefarious shit going on with my device, right? And I couldn't figure out who. I had my suspicions. But all of a sudden, on January the 15th, I just remember it being a full 2 weeks after December 28th. Okay, so after the New Year, it was like 2 weeks, but December 28th was a key date. And then also the date this happened, like January 15th or whatever it was when it happened, because I got a bunch of voicemails all at one time on my device that I had been using for forever. So I got like 10 or 12 voicemails all at one time. And the first one and the last one were from the same person at Sportsman's Outdoor Warehouse. And it just happened to be that shortly, like a week or two prior to this, I had discovered that this is where I buy all my guns, right? And I discovered that just coincidentally that the chief of police's daughter happens to work at the gun store where I buy my guns. What are the odds of that, right? What are the odds? And now here, I just learned that piece of information, and here I get these voicemails, and I can't figure out why I'm just now getting like 2 weeks worth of voicemails, and why I didn't get them before. And then I'm really suspicious about the first and last message, because it says that they want me to come down to the gun store and sign a couple pieces of paper. Some places where I missed my signature when I purchased my last gun before that. Now, I had purchased this gun before that in August, I think. So it was months and months prior to this. And the voicemail was saying, from this guy saying that, excuse me, I had to go down, schedule something to go down and sign a couple spots where I missed giving my drawn Hancock, So I'm thinking in my head, I was like, there's no way that 6 months after the fact, they're going to just conveniently realize that I missed a couple of spots. I didn't sign on a couple spots for the federal firearm application to get approval, the background check thing that everybody has to go through. Yeah, I find it hard to believe that I just happened to miss, a couple key signatures on these forms. And I'm especially suspicious because of the nature of the messages, right? So I thought, that's a setup. It's a setup. There's no way. I'm not doing that. I'm not going down there. I think it might have been before. Yeah, I think it was before I learned exactly what was going on. I was just highly suspicious because I noticed people following me. I noticed all this weird shit going on, and I hadn't told anybody. But I assumed that that I was under some kind of investigation, and that's the only thing that could explain it. And I was convinced that they were going to bust my door down any day, and I'd figure out what was going on. So I thought, well, they're trying to lure me to the gun store, somewhere where I'll be, where they think I'll go. You get me to sign for something, it's a setup, I thought it's definitely got to be a setup. So I ignored it. Totally ignored the phone call, the messages. But I didn't forget it. And about 2 days went by, and it was eating me up. It was really eating me up. So curiosity got the best of me. And I sat down and decided, you know what? I gotta just see. I gotta call them. I gotta see what they say. So I called down to the gun store where I bought all my guns, Sportsman Warehouse, which is like a half hour, 35 minutes from my house here. And I'm going to figure out, I'm going to get to the bottom of this and figure out if it's a setup or not. I'm going to call them, right? I thought just getting me to call might have been a setup too. But no sooner do I dial the number on the phone to call. And I'd called this place before. Remember, I bought all my guns there. So I knew their number. I had called this place before. It had no problem getting a hold of them. But I'd dial the number and go to call, and it would just go beep, 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 and hang up every time. It would not allow me to call this place, right? So I'm really scratching my head now. I was like, what the fuck is this all about? So I do some experiments, right? I bust out my science, right? And I figured, well, I'll try to call another business with my phone and see if that works, right? So I did. And sure enough, it worked. It worked just fine. I was like, okay. So let's see if maybe there's something wrong with their phone number, right? So I used somebody else's phone, and I called down there. What do you know? It worked. It worked just fine. So somebody else's phone could call down there. It worked just fine. I called another business from my phone. It worked just fine. So I'm like, well, what could cause this, right? The only thing left in my head is that they blocked me or something. That somebody must have blocked me from calling that number. Like, they had to be the only ones to do it, right? Somebody had to block my number from receiving calls down at the store. And I had just learned that the chief of police, Patton here, his daughter worked there. What do you know? What a coinky dink, right? What a coincidence. So I'm thinking, okay, this is, my suspicions are correct. It is the chief of police. That's the one that put me in this program, the one that's doing all this crap, because he's the only one that I didn't see out of everybody, And that's what they say, if you're being gang stalked, and you think you know who's behind it, you won't see that person. They go out of their way to make sure that you won't see them. They'll do their best to conceal their identity so that you can't have some evidence to point to them. Say, look, see, they're doing this, They want to call you crazy, so they won't do anything personally that would allow you to get evidence on them, right? That's the whole name of the game. I actually thought that the chief of police had retired at that point. It had been so long since I seen him. I thought he must have retired or something. I haven't seen him in like a year at this point. And hell, before that, he was filing false police reports about me, lying on an official police report just to stack the charges. He was, willing to do all this shit. And I had a suspended driver's license, and he made it clear to me that, he was going to do everything in his power to make sure I go to jail for as long as possible. He told me that to my face. So I didn't see him for like a year. And I was driving around with a suspended license. And it's like, well, he must have retired then. Why? Because why wouldn't he take every opportunity to try to bust me for driving under suspension? He told me he was going to do that. And here I am blatantly driving around with a suspended license, and I don't see the cop. I didn't see any cops for this whole time period, which was another reason that I suspected that I was under some kind of surveillance, because if they were watching me, waiting to bust me and take me down, they're going to make sure that I don't see cops everywhere, right? They don't want to spook me. I figured they were going to bust my door down any day. And that's why I figured they're probably waiting for the opportune moment to bust me so that they can minimize the risk to civilians' safety, because I carried my pistol around. I bought, I'm a new gun owner. And if they knew that and they just tried to bust in and arrest me and somebody got shot and killed, they'd be liable, right? So I thought maybe they're just doing their due diligence. They're making sure that they don't put anybody's lives at risk, further risk to the community, right? So being convinced of all this, and I called the sports warehouse and find out my phone number is blocked from there. It was really baffling. So I took my same phone that wouldn't call there, and I downloaded a second phone number app, and I tried that. What do you know? It worked. So there it is. I proved beyond a reasonable doubt to myself and anybody else that they blocked my phone number. Okay. So then I'm really wondering, what's going on here? Why did they block my number? They just left me messages saying that they wanted me to come down and sign some papers. Why would they block my number then? Something ain't adding up here. So I get a hold of the guy in the messages, and sure enough, it's according to what he said and everything. It was legit. It was absolutely legit. They do their paperwork. They send it in like quarterly or something like that, and they go over all their paperwork before they send it in to the government. And if there's anything missed on the paperwork, they try to take care of it before they send it out, because they can get fined. As a business, they can lose their license. They're responsible for making sure that those forms are filled out in entirety. It's on them. It's on the purchaser as well. Any federal form you fill out, you sign something saying that you swear that anything submitted on this form is true to the best of your ability and all that shit. Because you're liable as the person that filled out the form. They're liable as the company that accepted it without a proper signature. So I'm thinking to the guy, I was like, well, I'm not going to tell them when I'm coming down. I said, I'm not. What happens if I just don't come down? And he said, well, it don't matter to me. He said, it's your ass just as much as it is our ass. He said, but if you want, I can just send it to you certified. I'll send it in the mail certified to you. That way we did our part, and it's on you. And I said, I'll tell you what, go ahead and get it ready to send out, certified. And if I make it down there before it goes out, well, then I'll just sign it. And if by the time I make it down there, you already sent it out, then, well, you already sent it out. So that way, whichever comes first, I said. He said, okay, that works. His name was Sean. And I go down one day, just randomly, a couple weeks later, to get my mother. I took her down there, and he wasn't working. But I took her down there to get a pistol for herself because she lived alone at the time. And I thought it was important that she had the ability to protect herself living alone. And I made her, purchase her own firearm for the house. And we went down that day to pick up the firearm because her approval had come through. And I was waiting on that Sean guy. And he wasn't in that day, so I was waiting for him to come back in. So here we go back to pick up the pistol and so I can sign these forms for Sean. So he ended up being the salesman that sold my mom her gun, and he was very nice, really, really nice guy. And I mentioned to him that, just real briefly, I mentioned to him about how it was weird how my phone couldn't call down there. And I played dumb, I just asked him, I was like, what would cause that to happen? You ever had that happen before? And he didn't know. He didn't know how that would happen. So he didn't have the answer, so we moved on. But when we got up to the register to check out, my mom and I both, without saying anything to each other, we found out later on, we both noticed these people following us around the store for 2 hours. Right? I mean, for a couple hours. They were following us everywhere. And they were hanging out just right around the register where you check out, right? That's where people hang out if you're waiting on an approval for a gun. So it wasn't out of the ordinary necessarily that they were waiting there. I thought they were maybe waiting on a gun. But I noticed them, eyeballing us, and they were really giving us really funny looks and funny vibes, following us everywhere around the store. So whenever we go to check out, and my mom, she tries her card, and it says it won't work. It's just, like as if her card won't work or something, it won't go through. No more information than that. It could be, could be her card. We don't know. So I use my card. So, well, here, I have money on my card. I know I do. Here, we'll try this one. It wouldn't go through. Right? But it's strange. It was coming up as like insufficient funds or something. They couldn't tell that that it wasn't a problem with our card. That's why they let us try these other cards and stuff, right? So after a couple times and it wouldn't go through, I bring it back up to the salesman, the Sean guy. I said, yeah, this is just like whenever my phone won't work to call here. You know, I'd like to figure out, you know, what that's all about, because I bet you it's related to this right here. And he said, well, you can just check out at the front register, you know, because we're going to have to reset this machine. It's going to take a while, right? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So we were going to go, and then the IT guy came up, though, to reset the machine. The IT guy comes up to fix their transaction machine or whatever. And, you know, the IT guy, they only got one IT guy at these places. And he's there. The salesman took the opportunity while the IT guy was there. He said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this, because I mentioned to him, excuse me, I mentioned to him my theory. I said, I think I know why, you know, my phone won't work to call here. I said, and something tells me that it's the same reason why these transactions won't go through. I said, well, the small town I live in, I said, the chief of police up there is had it out for me. He's got a hard on for me. And, you know, I recently found out that his daughter works here, you know. And that's all he had to say. When I mentioned that to him, everything clicked for him. And he was like, okay. He's like, yep, I know who you're talking about. He's like, yep, I know. So he was confirming to me, he knew exactly what I was talking about. Everything made sense. I didn't sound crazy, you know, not at all. And this is a guy who works at a gun store, right? So they deal with law enforcement quite often, you know, first responders. They deal with people that I claim are responsible for this fucking gang stalking shit, right? So wouldn't it be, you know, wouldn't it just make sense that somebody like that works in a gun store, he would probably hear about this, something like this. He would know about cops doing this to people, right? Or the gun store would even be involved in some cases, and they would absolutely know about the existence of this program. I'm just thinking out loud, you know, I'm thinking this in my head, and I'm thinking, okay, so this makes sense. He knows what I'm talking about, because at this point, I hadn't mentioned anything to anybody really, like, especially nobody in public. I mentioned it to my mom. Obviously, that's why she was getting a firearm, because people, you know, coming in your place when you're not there. The different, she had legitimate concerns, you know, with the neighbor who's a head of a Masonic lodge, right? He's the Grand Poobah for a certain Masonic lodge. He wrote this message on the side of the porch. He owns the house next door, and he wrote that very disturbing message. It said, "Fool for dumb cunts no more," you know. And they had split up after 20-some years of being together, so it's all starting to make sense, right? So I convinced her to get a firearm. So whenever I said all this to the guy, and I said, well, we can just go to the front and check out. We don't have to wait for this thing to reset. He said, no. He said, no, you're going to wait right here. He said, we're going to take care of this right here, right now. And I was like, okay. So it doesn't matter to me, you know, I don't care. And he goes up to the IT guy, because the IT guy's stuck there at the register fixing the thing that wouldn't let us check out, right? And he goes right in front of me over to him, and he has my phone with him, like, and we demonstrated this for him right there, so he couldn't escape it, right? And he's like, hey, my customer here, he said his phone won't work to call here. And then we demonstrated it and showed it to him right there. And he's like, what would cause that to happen? He said, you know, he did what I do, play dumb and ask him a question you already know the answer to. Because if anybody knew what would cause that, if anybody knew the answer, it would be that IT guy. He would certainly know what could cause that, right? So when he asked him, what could be the cause of that, of him not being able to call down here? And the guy says he wouldn't even look up from his computer. He says, "Oh, I don't know." So we both look at each other and give it, confirmation nods, like, yep. Mm-hmm. So long story short, a couple minutes later, we try it, and what do you know? My phone works to call there again. They fixed that right then and there. He got that fixed, and he fixed the machine, right? My mom's transaction went through just fine then, right? That IT guy fixed it all in just a minute. But he had no idea what would cause that to happen, right? Same thing with the voicemails that I got. A couple voicemails that show up all at one time, right? And it just so happens that the first one and the last one were from Sportsman Warehouse, and it had to do with their liability. It meant the difference of violating a federal law or not, right? So that's why I feel like it's law enforcement involved, because they do these things to you, but they make sure that they're not going to risk violating the law, right? So they had no choice but to give me all my messages, because if they would have withheld all those messages, well, guess what? Then they would be liable it'd be a much bigger deal then, wouldn't it? Just like they come in your house and move things around, but they don't take anything, because they have eyes on them too. It's because it is law enforcement that's doing this stuff. So they're not going to fuck with somebody and just steal your stuff, per se. They're just going to mess with you, because they're the good guys, right? They have integrity, right? They're messing with you, but they're not going to take risk taking their stuff, and then you being able to say, look, they're fucking thieves, right? So, it all points to the law enforcement being involved. And there's little things like this that I could go on for days. Little experiments I did, little situations where you can't deny, the involvement of certain people, certain groups. You can't deny that something was happening, right? That somebody's fucking with my shit, right? It's all undeniable. It certainly isn't mental illness, right? And if you just took everything that I just told you and assume that it's true, right? Everything I told you is, if you're going to look at that and try to say it's mental illness, you're fucking crazy. You're batshit crazy. There's nothing about that has anything to do with somebody's cognitive abilities, right? Or their cognitive impairments or their mental instability. Not at all. It has nothing to do. It's totally irrelevant. None of it could be a delusion, right? It's all just fucking concrete facts. This either worked or didn't work. I tried different things. I was able to determine this. Yeah, this to be true, this to be false, science. I did science, right? And I've been able to come to these conclusions. So I can't forget those things, You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unlearn what you've learned. I can't unknow what I know. I'm sorry, but I can't. I'm sorry, Nerd Gorilla. I can't forget those things. When you try to claim that schizophrenia, when you try to push the fucking narrative that TIs are mentally unstable, right? That it's all in their head. That it's persecutory delusions, right? Sorry, I can't forget these little details. That wouldn't be right, would it? To do that. That would be ignoring the science and not trusting the science, wouldn't it? If I ignored these key details, these undeniable facts. So why do you ignore them? That's what I'd like to know. Why does Nerd Gorilla ignore these undeniable facts when he says gang stalking is not happening? It's schizophrenia. Unless, he's a paid perp. Unless he's being paid. That's the only explanation, because he seems like a guy who doesn't want to risk his credibility. He doesn't want to say something that's obviously wrong, right? And risk his online credibility, even if he doesn't use his name. He's already invested in the Nerve Gorilla persona and the credibility of Nerve Gorilla. He's been on the internet since 1995 and all that shit, right? So he's not going to risk his credibility just, if he knows the truth. right? He's not going to risk that unless he's being paid, unless it's his job, right? I mean, you tell me. I'd love to hear another explanation of what would motivate him to, to influence people about something he knows is false. What would motivate somebody to do that? What would motivate somebody to expose themselves and to destroy their own credibility? The only thing I can figure is money. That's it. It's the only thing I can come up with. So I don't know. And then when you get like Conspiracy Underground, who immediately the day after I make a video, right, where I talk about some things that happened to me that, and I claim it's law enforcement are the ones involved in this, right? And I give my personal testimony about certain things that happened to me, to how I know it's law enforcement involved, and people in the Bureau of Prisons, they work in the Department of Corrections, prison guards, and then you got members of first responders, right? Firemen, super secret boy band, EMTs, It is all the people at those levels. It's the people that are involved in law enforcement, the people that are involved in the courts, that are the ones doing it. And they all know about it. It's their game. Don't let any of them play dumb to you. Don't let them gaslight you and try to think that it's fucking in your head, or that it's spiritual, or that it's, or that it's some criminal agency, right? It's not cops, it's some criminal agency. They kill people, right? I think that's all fucking gaslighting too. I do believe that's all just gaslighting to get you to forget about these key details that they don't want people to hear. Okay? Stop forgetting about these key details. These undeniable things. We gotta remember these undeniable things, and we gotta keep repeating them and repeating them and repeating them and repeating them, so that we can help drill the truth into people. So we help remind people what's true. Don't forget. Don't forget this happened. Don't forget this happened. Because it's not hard to do that. It's not hard to forget some undeniable things when there's so much fucking manipulation and gaslighting going on, right? Believe me, I'll be the first to admit it. How they can easily sway your influence one way or another, even if you have these undeniable things. And it's only until you remind yourself, of these undeniable things, that you can snap out of it and say, no, that's wrong, because I know this to be true. I can't unknow what I know, so they have to be lying, right? It's real simple, really simple. If you're somebody who's on the fence and you're trying to figure out if this is mental illness, or if these people are all mentally ill, or if there really is something to this, you got to take these undeniable things into account, okay? And everything that I just mentioned is 100% fact. I'm sure there's some way to verify it. Like the Sean at Sportsman Outdoors in Altoona, PA. I'm sure he would verify the story. Whenever I was leaving there that day, he after he gave my mom her firearm and we were shaking hands to part ways, he gave me a handshake I'll never forget. He where you really grip somebody's hand, you know what I mean, and kind of pull in tight, And he looked at me and he just gave me a head nod. He's like, hey, thank you. He said, thank you. Like, not as in thank you for the purchase, as in, hey, thank you for pushing. Thank you for pushing back. Like, he agreed with what I was doing, that he didn't think it was right that they do this shit, I got the impression that he knew all about this, and I think he really respected the fact that I was pushing back in a way that they couldn't call me crazy, right? I think he really appreciated that. So he gave me a real firm handshake. I'll never forget it. And he looked at me in the eye and he said, thank you. He said it twice. And this is why these fucking idiots are right there following us around the store. Now, we left right then. And what do you know? The guy that was standing there by the register the whole time, his wife and his kid, they left too, but they didn't get a gun. They just left. So there's no explanation of why they were standing there for 2 hours following us around. And that's the same people, I've talked about this before. It's those same people then followed us all the way from Altoona to Patton. And we went the back way and stopped at my grandmother's on the way. That's even more disturbing. That means that they followed us and they stopped along the way. The long way around. Because we got to Patton, go to Sheets, and the same guy went into Sheets when my mom was in there. And he made sure that she noticed him when he went by. And then he stood on the other side of the store and gave her dirty fucking looks for no reason at all. That was when she had her awakening, her realization that everything I'm talking about is 100% true and legit. Because they did it to her. She goes to check out. And right as she's checking out, the guy that was just giving her dirty looks, he makes it a point to come walk right past her again without ever buying a fucking thing. And he walks right past her so that he's exiting the store in front of her. Okay? He's not, I wasn't stalking you. I was in front of you, right? They follow from in front. Get it? Give him dirty looks. To get my mom to say, that guy's giving me dirty looks, that guy's following me, right? Well, how can you say, what are you talking about? I'm not following you. You're crazy. That's what they would say. I think that's why they did it. They wanted that to happen. Because they left the store ahead of us, ahead of my mom, and then they just sat there in the parking lot. She tells me about it, and I immediately said, whoa, whatever it is, don't react. I said, don't do what they want you to do. That's the whole point. Don't react. She's like, no, I don't care. I'm fucking pissed. And she was mad because it's not right. She's getting dirty looks from a total stranger who just followed us for the last 3 hours. The back way, long way around. After we stopped at my grandmother's, and he's going to give her dirty looks in the store. No, she was fit to be tied. So we go to pull out. Right when we go to pull out, sure enough, then this guy and his old lady, whoever, the chick was driving, But they go to pull out right when we do. So my mom pulled a fast one. She pulled out of the Sheets parking lot, and that's when, they were backing out of their spot because we were leaving. And instead of heading home, she pulled back in. She went around the corner, went right back into the parking lot. And what do you know? Those people they were pulling out behind us, they all of a sudden veered off and went over to the air pumps to get air in their tires. You can't make this shit up, right? It's just a coincidence, though, right? Or it's persecutory delusions or something like that, right? That explains it. Yeah, sure. So that was when she had her awakening, her moment of clarity. I didn't have to convince her at all. She saw this shit for herself. And then the same thing, it took my daughter a while. It took her about the better part of a year of them gaslighting her day after day after day so that she would come home and be mad at her dad. She would literally come home mad at me, and she didn't even know why. She didn't understand until she looked back at it and saw everything they were doing to me, and she realized all the gaslighting, everything they were doing to her, the level of manipulation, right? The people that were supposed to be like friendly to your face. And when you have that kind of realization that all these people can look you in the eye and they have some kind of ill intent, it really, really pisses a person off. It's like you get that feeling of deception, like you were just deceived, you were manipulated, you were used to come against your own father. What kind of sick fucks do something like that? That's all I'm saying. What kind of sick fucks are you? You people need fucking help. Serious, serious help. You're sick in the head. I mean, there's no explanation. There's no plausible deniability there. You're claiming, he didn't know. Yeah, bull fuck. You guys all make conscious decisions to do this to somebody, knowing damn well that it's not for a good reason, not for a good cause. So you do that shit. My daughter come to the realization. She was crying as she was apologizing to me for the way she felt. It's not like she told me how she felt every day. She remembers feeling mad at me every day to the point where she feels the need to apologize to me. And she's crying because of because she's a good person. And she felt terrible because she didn't do this with intent. She was manipulated, right? And she still felt horrible about it, because when it is horrible to do this to a person. You're not a good person. If you decide to do this to somebody, you're not a good person at all. You can kid yourself all you want, but you're not a good person. You're a fucking evil piece of shit. There's a special place in hell reserved for you people. I truly believe that. And my daughter was 16 at the time. 16 years old. And you're going to fuck with somebody's head like that? I'm a single dad. The mother had already fucking abandoned her. And you're going to try to get her to turn her against the only fucking parent that's ever been there for her? Look, I mean, what the fuck? It's so sick. It's just, that's the only word I can come up to think of, how disgusting it is, and how sick it is for these people to do this shit. And I know they're getting mad right now at this video, at the fact that I'm saying all this. I'm sure they're getting really mad right now because they know it's true. They know everything I'm saying is true, and they don't want to face that fact that they're fucking disgusting, seriously disgusting, demented, evil motherfucking pieces of shit. It's a consensus. It's not a conclusion just I've come to. Everybody who goes through this has come to the same conclusion, that these people involved in this are sick in the fucking head. Right? So now, I thank you, perps. Thank you for opening my daughter's eyes to what people were really capable of. You know, thank you for teaching her to look out for people like you. They can look you in the eye one day, smile to your face, and try to fuck you in the ass, or fuck you over when you're bent over backwards, fucking when you're not paying attention. You know, it's hard for a good person to even comprehend that certain people are capable of doing this stuff, because you don't think like that. So it's hard to even imagine it. So thank you for helping to teach my daughter a lesson that she'll never forget. But there's evil motherfuckers in the world, and they're your mailman, they're your policemen, your firefighters, your first responders. That's who they are. I mean, those agencies are not the gang stalkers, but primarily the people doing this just happen to work in law enforcement, first responders, local businesses. It's all, what they can deem as society as a whole, right? A good representation of what society as a whole is. The control structure, anyway, the authority structure. That's who's behind it all. That's who's doing it. And they're not doing it because they're doing the right thing, or because, no, it's got to be money. Money is the root of all evil. That's got to be the motivator. Some of them, I'm sure, it's blackmail. Like the heroin addicts. They get the heroin addicts to participate in this shit. That, I'm sure, is blackmail. And stepping on their necks, pulling a George Floyd on them. Stepping on their throats, saying, you're going to do this or else, threatening them, intimidating them. So, that turned into a big, long story there, but, sometimes I feel the need to just share my story, and in the hopes that it'll save somebody else from a bad situation, in the hopes that it'll save one of these people that are getting fucking tortured by domestic terrorism every day. It's going to save somebody. It's going to buy them one extra hour or minute of reality that you can implement these key things, this awareness. If you know this to be true, if you know about the program, you can make sure it doesn't do anything to you. You can make sure that they're not effective. Awareness is the key. To protecting yourself and to stopping their tactics against you. Awareness, that's it. That's key. That's it. That is the main thing, the main number one defense against this. So I just hope that, my testimony coming on here doing this can help one person just even get 1 day of their lives back, or end the fucking fuckery 1 day earlier for them before they have to fucking try to figure out what's going on for themselves, like we all are forced to do. So, and I've seen the people who've responded, thanking me for sharing my story, thanking me for opening their eyes to certain things that they prior to would have never thought about, and that's what people did for me. So I can only pay it forward. So I know that I'm doing the right thing. I don't have to question it. I know that I'm doing the right thing. And you know what else tells me I'm doing the right thing? Whenever the more pushback I get from the perps, the more gaslighting attempts I get. And that's my confirmation. That lets me know that I'm on the right track and doing the right thing. So have a good Thanksgiving. If I don't end up coming back on here for a minute, sometimes I'll go days without uploading. You got to do that. You got to take breaks from this shit, because it will consume you. It will destroy you. So don't, every TI doesn't have to be like me and devoted to spreading awareness about it, because it is taxing, very taxing. It will consume you. It will affect your life in not so good ways. I'm doing it for my reasons, for the next guy, so our kids might have a future where they don't have to worry about this shit. But I don't expect every TI to do that. That's asking quite a bit. It's pretty much asking to sacrifice your life for the cause. And I swore an oath I already did that. From all enemies, both foreign and domestic. So I have no problem upholding my oath. So be good, have a good Thanksgiving, and be good or be good at it. Peace out.